Mile Rundown. We are on episode 74. It is the home stretch of the season, and I am with you again on another episode of the podcast. I am Johnny Stubb, your host, of course, and as always, alongside me, my good friend, your good friend from FlamesNation.ca, it is Robert Munich. How are we doing, Robert?
We're doing great, and I'm just looking at the Flames stats since the trade deadline. Guess who leads the team in scoring since March 6th?
The hilarious answer is Ole Mata, but it
is Ole Mata.
Oh,
ding, ding, ding,
Ole
ding. We
Mata.
have a winner.
Isn't that crazy?
14 points in his last 19 games. Like, are you kidding me? You're thinking that you're trading Uyghur and you're bringing in a defensive specialist. Like, I would have thought he would have had 3 or 4 points in 19 games. No, just 14 points in his last 19 games. Second most at 5-on-5, only behind Erik Karlsson. I think he's 13th or 14th in the NHL since that time. It's just wild.
I'll start printing the Mata for Norris t-shirts.
Well, those are going to fly off the shelves.
Man,
I wonder if he's going to be on some Norris ballots the way he's been playing lately. My goodness.
If you're only taking since the trade deadline, absolutely. I don't care what Lane Hudson's done, Quinn Hughes has done, Makar's done, Rowensky's done. Ole Mata is your winner.
Actually, this award season is actually going to be really interesting. Maybe next week we should do like our own award ballots because there's a lot of like really tight races around the NHL.
Yeah, there is interesting ones too out there. Like the Hart one could go a number of different ways. The Norris could go a number of different ways. The Vezina, I don't think there's any clear-cut leader for the Vezina right now.
Selke, yeah, like there's
Jack Adams should be interesting. Yeah, it's gonna be great.
Yep.
Even that annoying one, the Executive of the Year one, even that one's interesting where that could go too.
Depending on how you look at it, like Conroy should get some serious consideration for that. And it may be insane to say that because his team is so bad and they're fourth last in the NHL right now. And I think that award usually goes to teams that are more successful. But like if you zoom out and you take a look at the big picture and see some of the returns that he got this year for older, veteran players, he's done a really good job. I think he should genuinely get interest for that award.
Yeah, he got a should-be Norris nominee in Mata. He got a Hart Trophy nominee in Ryan Strome. He's got Rookie of the Year in Gridin. Like, it's been incredible. We joke, but no, I'm with you. Like, the job that Conroy has done versus what people were expecting the Flames to be is quite interesting to measure that against what people's expectations were. People were thinking that this Flames team should be in the playoffs. They weren't in the playoffs. He pivoted. Not very many general managers can pivot in season and still be deemed a success. You talk to other fans, and a lot of people are praising the job that Conroy is, just like you and I are. And they're happy about the job he did. They're happy he made the moves. They're happy they're building something. So I don't think it's out of the question. Now it's a harder sell across the league and non-Flame fans, but man, the case is definitely there for Conroy.
I mean, I would just throw the question out there to specifically Flames fans, because we're the ones that cover this team and watch this team so much. But what more could you ask of Conroy up to this point? I mean, sure, in my opinion, you would have wished that they would have kind of started this rebuild last season instead of going for it, because they ultimately end up missing the playoffs. But aside from that, up until this point, he's done a remarkable job. I mean, the returns for these veteran players have been home runs. I mean, the only bad trade, in my opinion, is probably the Chris Tanev one. I feel like they didn't quite get enough value out of that, and you're seeing what Artem Grushnikov is, which is not much. So that sucks. But I think outside of that, I would give him around a B all the way to A+ grade on basically every other deal that he's made. And he's done a good job at the draft, and he's told his scouts what to look for, and they've done a really good job in the draft. And he hasn't blown his brains out in free agency. If anything, he's actually made a couple really nice moves. And I look specifically at Devin Cooley, getting a guy like him signed to, I think the first year the contract was a 2-way deal, and the second year was a 1-way. Now he's one of the best goalies in the NHL. So in terms of setting yourself up for success at the start of a rebuild, in terms of like what your cap looks like, and in terms of like what your roster construction looks like and prospect pool and all that kind of stuff, I don't think Conroy could put the Flames in that much better of a position than he already has. So yeah, I can't give more compliments out to Conroy. I continue to be super impressed with what he's doing.
I You look at as well at these trades that he's made, and it's like he's targeted certain guys, and he's gotten those guys. He's had the patience to wait for them. Like he targeted Bristevich in that trade coming back from Vancouver. Like that was a guy he wanted. You heard that Zach Whitecloud was always in the trade with Vegas for Anderson, unless if he wasn't included, they weren't making that trade. So he made his targets, he set his prices, he stuck with them, he was patient with them, and he pulls off the moves, and he seems to pull them off when he's good and ready. And it always seems to be at a good time for the Flames as well, just when they need that trade to happen, just when they need a little spark for something. And it's incredible to watch. Now the time is starting to come here where they have to turn these picks into something, and you've seen how he drafts, and so that'll be interesting how that all plays out, how they use these draft picks. But it's fun. It's a lot more fun to watch this side of a rebuild happen and the way Craig Conroy has been going about it than watching a struggling team battle for that 17th overall spot and maybe be a playoff team and be frustrated at every game here. So I think I've had a lot of fun despite the results. I've had a lot of fun watching what Craig Conroy's done this year and what the Flames have done this year and how they've worked these pieces into their lineup. And so I'm excited for what's to come next year and the year after here from Craig Conroy as well, because it's just the start, like you mentioned, Robert. This isn't done. This is just the start of a rebuild and making sure that his mark is put on this Flames team. So it should be interesting what this offseason and into next season bringing for Craig Conroy and the Flames.
Yeah, we'll maybe this summer we'll do a deep dive into all the moves that Craig Conroy has made, because I'm just looking through them now, and I just keep seeing, yeah, there really are. I mean, he's as we all know, Brad Treliving left him a big pile of shit to deal with, and Conroy, he's done a great job getting himself out of it. Like I don't really think he could have done all that much better, and even like the Philly trade last season is starting to look pretty good. Mangiapane for a second round pick, the Markstrom trade, like it just kind of goes on and on and on. Like really, really impressive stuff. And man, I am like, you made a great point there. I'm so happy that we're watching this team not compete for the second wild card spot in the West. Like basically it'd be like watching the Nashville Predators this season, and nobody needs that. Like I look at that Nashville team, and that's a team that needs to rebuild desperately. But for some reason, they continue just to want to stay in that mushy middle, and they kept a lot of their veteran players, and now they're probably going to end up missing the playoffs by a point or two, and that's the position the Flames have been in far too many times. So it's very refreshing I know watching some of these games down the stretch is not the most entertaining thing, but to know that they're not just pushing for the second wildcard spot and then seeing them miss and then seeing them get the 14th overall pick or the 11th overall pick. It's so nice to finally be in a situation where they have a real direction. They're going in the right direction. They're going to get a top pick. I would say, the top 6 or 7 players in the first round of this year's draft look very good. Like they're all going to be solid NHL players. And it's just, great to see the Flames in a position to add to this already, pretty good prospect group and this already pretty good group of young players.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned it there. Some of these games have not been entertaining as much as we probably want, and the position that we might have want. We all want playoff hockey, but what has been fun, Robert, is watching the younger Flame players in the lineup getting their opportunities, getting their chances to play with the big club, learning how to be a pro, learning how to be in this league. And so, great point by you this week for us to sit down here and just kind of shoot back and forth on these younger players, what we're seeing, the potential fit of these guys longer term on this team, what we're liking, what we're disliking, and that whole 9 yards. Because it's quite the list of players that we have here we can talk about and go through it. And let's start with the one that everyone loves and everyone want to talk about. And he's a guy who's been a topic for multiple seasons now. He's a guy who's had a couple of tough years, especially this season with the Flames. But Zane Parekh, as of late, has really seemed to have turned a corner. I thought he's played that at the end of that road trip in that game against Utah on Sunday. I thought he played some really good defensive hockey. We all know his offensive upside, the way he can skate with the puck, the way he passes with a nice crisp hard pass, the way he has his vision. It seems his defensive game's come along a little bit of ways as well in the absence of guys like Ball being out of the lineup, Hanley being out of the lineup. He's asked to take on a lot of bigger minutes. So what have you made of Zane Parekh the last little while here in his progression after we can say it was a pretty bad and brutal start to the season for Zane Parekh overall here, and he's really kind of found a home now.
Yeah, I mean, if we were to watch, like if we were to go back and watch Zane play in his first 7 or 8 games of this season, and then watch the player that we're seeing now, it's basically an entirely different guy.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. I think he's really starting to figure out the NHL game, and I think that's what you see with a lot of young players who start out in the NHL, you know, at 19 or 20 years old, who don't have the biggest frame, who aren't used to the speed of the game. I think it usually takes them around anywhere from 25 to say 45 games to really start to figure out the NHL level. And, you know, like I thought we were seeing that with Sam Honzek earlier this year, you know, coming into career game about 30 for him. I was really starting to see some progression and really starting to see him look like a true NHL player. And I'm seeing the exact same thing with Parekh now. I mean, he's played 35 games this year, and he just continues to get better and better and better. And the most important thing for me is just the confidence. And, you know, you and I have talked about this a lot this season, but Zane is the type of player and person who needs to be feeling good about himself, who needs to be confident. And, you know, you could say that about a lot of NHL players. But when he's confident and he's feeling it, he looks like a completely different player, mainly in the offensive zone. You know, just his work along the blue line, his ability to pinch and keep pucks in, his willingness to go down low and get himself open in a shooting position to help contribute to the offense. Like there were a few times against Utah and Seattle where I was like Zane almost looks like a rover out there, and I think that's exactly what you want to see from a guy who's as talented as he is. So yeah, I'm very, very impressed with how he's gone about his business here over specifically the last couple months, because this season had the potential to be a complete write-off, to be, you know, basically go over a cliff, and he's got it back on you know, the back on the train tracks here, and he's really finished strong. So yeah, I've been really, really impressed with him over the last few months. What about you?
Yeah, it's like Ryan Huska has gone to Zane and said, okay, the reins are off, go play your game, right? And with the confidence that he's shown and almost like the freedom he's been allowed as of late here, we've seen a much different Zane Parekh. He's not taking as many big hits anymore. He seems to be making smarter decisions with the puck. His pace of play, not just his skating, but his pace of play has picked up, where he's moving that puck and he's getting to spots. He's not shy with, you know, using his speed and his ability to skate in the offensive zone. I've quite liked the progression I've seen from Zane Parekh. It was not a good start to the season. I did not like a lot of what I saw early on from Zane Parekh, and I found myself thinking more than once, maybe the sending him back to the OHL wasn't such a bad thing. We even had an episode where I found a spot for him in an OHL lineup to help him progress further and play games. But now that just seems like a fool's thing to have said back when I did. And that's a good thing. I'm happy to have been wrong. I'm happy to have misread the situation, because we're seeing a confident young player, and you're seeing why the Flames drafted him. You're seeing why he's highly thought of in the Flames organization by fans and by management alike, by the coaching staff. And he seems to have found a spot there beside his teammates that they enjoy playing with him as well, which is also a big key. So what we're seeing from Zane Parekh now is exactly what you wanted to see. You saw progression. You've seen him playing with confidence. And now we're going to talk about this a little bit later in the podcast again, but I think he's one of the players that has to have one of the biggest off seasons ahead of him. Get stronger, get a little bit quicker, you know, learn the game, but get more comfortable, have a really good summer, and come back and hit the ground running like you were right now. So for me, Zane Parech's been really good, especially this last, let's call it 19 games is what I have marked down here as. 7 points doesn't sound like a ton for him, but what he's done is you've seen his ice time skyrocket. He's close to 20 minutes a night now in average ice time, just under 19 minutes, I should say, in ice time. And that's up from the 13, 14 we saw earlier in the season. So more confidence, more ice time, more ability. You love to see it from Zane Parekh.
And I also think that we should give a little bit of a shout out to Ryan Huska for playing him more, because we saw early in the season, you could tell, like, okay, I don't want to put words in Huska's mouth, but just from my vantage point, to me, it looked like Ryan Huska wanted nothing to do with Zane Parekh. He did not want him in the lineup. He did not want to play him big minutes because, you know, he was making huge mistakes. And Huska, I think, was in this mode at the beginning of the year where he wanted to be competitive and he wanted this team to make the playoffs. And I think he really struggled to find a role and to trust Zane Parekh out there. But now that, past the trade deadline, ever since they traded Uyghur and Kadri and Anderson, that went completely out the window. And now it's at the point where it's okay. Huska's he's putting Parekh out there a lot. I mean, we saw last night played a career high 23-49 against the Utah Mammoth. So credit to Huska. Also at the same time, though, before we give him too much credit, I do feel like Parekh is playing these types of minutes and being put in these types of roles because of the injuries. Joel Hanley's been shut down for the year. Kuznetsov has missed a bunch of time. Kevin Ball is now looks like he's going to miss the remainder of the season. And all of a sudden you're running out of options if you're Ryan Huska. And I almost feel like it's because of the injuries why Zane is playing a lot, but at the same time, he is getting the minutes, and that's all that really matters. But I did kind of want to shout that out because I do have a feeling that Parekh probably would have been sat another probably 2 or 3 games, this season had there not been those injuries. So just kind of wanted to point that out too. But once again, you do have to give credit to Huska for trusting him and playing him more, because had he not done that, I don't think Parekh would be where he is right now at this point of the season. I think if he would have brought back his minutes and made him a healthy scratch for quote unquote load management purposes, I do think that would have hurt Parekh's confidence, and I don't think we'd be seeing the same player right now. So it's good to see him playing more.
Yeah, that's a great point. It can be both things. Like, I do believe Ryan Huska has a little bit more trust in Zane Parekh, but at the same time, maybe being forced to play him because of the injuries helped develop a little bit of that trust. But good on Zane for taking the ball and running with it when given the opportunity. That's what you want to see from a young player. This next one's a little bit more interesting for me than Zane Parekh. Zane Parekh is always going to be front and center because of the high level prospect he is. But the next guy on the list, I feel his season kind of plateaued, and I'm not really sure where to go with him at this point of the year. But Hunter Bruz really took on a lot this season. Seemed to get really good for a while there with the Flames. He had a lot of more minutes. He seemed to have the trust of Ryan Huska quicker than Zane Parekh got. But then since the Olympic break, it's kind of been a plateau up and down, or a little bit down for me with Hunter Bruz. So interesting to see where you're at with Hunter Bruz, his expectations, what you've made of his play this season, Robert.
For me, I've been impressed because of the situation he's been put in. I mean, this is a 21-year-old defenseman playing his second year of professional hockey. And down the stretch here, because of the injuries I mentioned before, Bruz has now been put in a top 4 role, and he's playing top 4 minutes, and he's playing against really good NHL competition. And when you keep that in mind, when you're kind of breaking down his game, I think you could only have really a lot of positives to say about it, because that's an extremely difficult situation to put that young of a defenseman in, especially a guy he's not the biggest guy, he's not the fastest guy, but he's very smart and he's a really good puck mover. And those are kind of the best qualities of his game. And I think him and Mata have actually been a really solid pairing for this team. So I've been impressed considering the situation Bruz has been put in. Heading into the offseason, I think he needs to put in a lot of work when it comes to his strength and his skating. And if he can come back and just be a little bit faster, a little bit stronger, and just be a little bit more quicker when it comes to his puck movement and just his overall skating, I think the Flames have themselves a legit top 4 defenseman for a long time. So yeah, I mean, there's nights when you could tell the game gets a little fast for him. Like, you watch those games against Colorado, and the Avalanche are skating circles around the Flames in general, but I thought Bruz struggled in those games. But then you watch some others, like last night against Utah, I thought he was good, and I thought he was rock solid against Seattle. And there's those nights where he plays great. So I've been impressed with him. I see a really strong upward trajectory to his game, and I do think that he has the potential to be an important player for the Flames moving forward here. So yeah, I've been pretty impressed by him.
Yeah, I like that take. I like that take a lot. I think that he's showing the Flames a lot of why they traded for him, showing fans why the Flames traded for him. I think we're seeing a lot of those things. I'm with you. His pace is his big question, and it has been for a while. If he can get a little quicker playing with that puck and use those boots a little bit better, I think he's a very effective player. You put it with a guy like an Ole Mata or a Jan Kuznetsov and allow him just to play his game and be settled into his role, I think he can run with it. I really liked what we saw especially earlier in the season. What we saw from Bristevich is he took on all these challenges and continued to just play hard. And I really like his work ethic. You really see him working every shift. He doesn't take a lot of nights off, and he doesn't take a lot of shifts off. And you really like that from a young player as well. He knows what's here and available for him. He knows there's an opportunity, and he's taking the ball and running with it. So I really like it. I'm really excited to see what he becomes for the Flames longer term as well, because I think this is a guy who could eventually maybe be a top pair guy with a stay-at-home defenseman, or a guy who can anchor his own second or third pairing and help the Flames out in a number of different ways. So it's interesting to see where he goes with his career. This next one was a guy the Flames targeted in a trade, and they weren't sure if he was going to sign after college. He's a guy who's from Western Canada. He had a lot of people in Seattle watching him play in his debut. Fairly new to the organization. He's only been a couple of games, but Abram Weeb signs with the Flames, gets in a couple of games. I thought he definitely struggled against Seattle, but that's to be expected coming from college in your first National Hockey League game. What have you made of Abram Weeb? And more importantly, where do we see this one going, Robert?
Yeah, I mean, my expectations were super low for him. I was just basically happy to see him get in the lineup, and whatever happens, happens. Because I mean, he's a young guy, 7th round pick, just coming off a college season, and stepping into the NHL after playing in the NCAA is asking a lot of a guy who's not an elite player or who's not a high end draft pick. So just I thought he was fine. He did just fine for when it comes to expectations. I do think the NHL game is very fast for him. And I think you could tell that with his usage by Ryan Huska. He did not play much. And when he was on the ice, he was getting put out there with veterans beside him just to kind of hold his hand essentially while he was out there. So I thought he definitely was better against Utah than he was against Seattle. I thought the Seattle game, he really struggled. I mean, the whole team struggled that night, but against Utah in his limited time, I do think he actually made a couple decent little plays at the puck. He made a couple decent exits out of the zone and was finding his forwards on tape-to-tape passes, which is kind of all you can ask for from a guy like him at this point of his career. And then, you ask about what's like his ceiling, or what are we going to see from him in the future. And I think if he can be a guy who plays at the AHL level, plays for the Wranglers for 4 or 5 years and brings some stability to that team. And then also maybe he gets called up every now and then to play with the Flames in like a third pairing role. I think you'd be happy with that. Just given the pedigree and kind of what kind of player he is. So I don't have high expectations for him. Like, I don't think he'll be an everyday NHL player at any point of his career, but if he can be a guy, like I said, who ends up being a really good player for the Wranglers and can be a guy you can call up and throw him out there in like a third pairing role and just play some decent shutdown minutes for you when there's injuries, then I think you got a pretty decent asset on your hands when it comes to that. So yeah, expectations aren't all that high. I think the ceiling's quite low, but I think the floor is decently high for him as well.
Yeah, I like that assessment. I think this is a guy where you can see why the Flames kind of targeted him. He kind of fits the style of defenseman that Craig Conroy seems to like. He seems to fit the kind of guy who can move the puck, who's got some okay boots to him, but he's a guy who feels like he's still pretty raw. And so I think some conditioning in the AHL, a couple of seasons playing down there will do this guy wonders. And you just wonder how he's going to progress down there. If he plays NHL games past this season, I think that's a win because of where he was drafted and how he was brought into the organization. Even if he just plays a handful of NHL games over the next few seasons, that's a big win for the Flames in my books. But it's a nice story that he's able to get in a game fairly close to his home in BC. He's able to play in front of his parents, which is always a cool story at the end of the season. And if he can make something of himself in the National Hockey League, that's awesome. And that's a good story to have as being a 7th round pick. This next guy, I think, will be maybe the odds-on favorite for fan favorite of all of the younger players at the moment. This guy has exploded onto the scene. This guy has shown that you can draft a little bit later in the first round and still be able to find a gem. Matvei Gridin has been incredible for the Flames. You and I at times on this podcast have called him the best Flame skater on more than one occasion. This guy has come along. His shot's good. His vision's incredible. He play makes like no other person on this team. Matvei Gridin, he might have put his expectations a little higher after this season going into the next few seasons. What have you liked from Gridin here so far? Is it all roses for you with Matt Gridin? Because this guy doesn't seem like he can get enough love across Flame fan base.
Yeah, dude. I think what he's doing is pretty incredible. I mean, you take a look at his last 17 games, so it's since the trade deadline. He's on pace for 58 points. He's got 12 points in 17 games. So that's a 58-point pace over 82.
Jeez.
And this is for a 20-year-old playing his first year of professional hockey. Like, this is a guy who is in the QMJHL last year and playing in the USHL the year prior to that. So for him to be putting up these types of numbers, I think is pretty remarkable. I don't think you can say enough good things about him. Like you said, the special thing about him is that I find with a lot of offensive players, either you're a kind of lean to more towards being a better shooter than passer or being a better passer than shooter. And I think he's like equally good at both right now. And they're both at a very high end, which I think is extremely exciting. I don't think you find those types of players very often, especially at 28th overall in the first round. So yeah, I've been extremely impressed with him. And the question that kind of comes to mind for me right now is, who is the Flames' top prospect at this moment in time? And this might change after the draft this year, but right now today, is it Gridin? Is it Parekh? Is it Wittenbach? Like, who do you think is their top prospect? Who do you think is the most important prospect in the system right now? Because I think the easy answer at the beginning of the year was obviously Zane Parekh, but I think that's kind of changed a little bit.
Yeah, that's a great question. You posed that into our rundown here to me as well, and it's just like, I've been thinking about it, and you just saw, no, it's clearly Zane. Well, hold on. Gridin's doing what's the hardest thing in this league to do, is score goals. It's Gridin, but a defenseman, a right-handed shot defenseman, is so important too. I think it's hard to pick between these two, and I don't think this is going to be such a cop-out answer, but it's honest for me. I don't think there's a wrong answer here between the two of those guys. I think Wittenbach is still behind them. I think it is Gridin or Parekh as the top prospect, and they might be tied up there because what you have two guys doing two things that are hard to do in this league. A right-handed shot defenseman who can run power plays for you is hard to find consistently, and it's hard to find a guy who can play, make, and score with what we're now seeing with ease that feels like Gridin is doing it at. So when you have a line driver like a Gridin and you have a nice defenseman who can put up points, doing that they both do, how do you pick between the two? Honestly, that's my answer. I don't know how to pick between the two.
I think it's a fair answer. You know, you're joking around about how it's the easy answer. I think that you're kind of spot on with that. I think it's hard to differentiate from those two players. The way I project them right now is I see Gridin as a top line winger who could probably score between 30 to 40 goals a year and put up anywhere between 70 to 90 points. And then for Parekh, I kind of project it as being a top four defenseman, runs your first power play, is a high-end offensive guy who could probably put up anywhere between, say 55 to 70 points. And I'm almost thinking the winger who's the great playmaker who can make his teammates better, I think maybe he might be slightly ahead of importance in terms of top prospects in the system. So I think I would lean more Gridin at this point in time, which I did not think I would be saying that, especially because Zane was the 9th overall pick and Gridin was number 28. So, good on him. Like he's turned himself into a really solid player. And yeah, I think at this point in time, I would have Gridin over Parekh, not by much. And then I still think people are sleeping on Wittenbach. Like, just what he did at this age as a freshman in the NCAA playing against, guys in their 20s, I think is super, super impressive. And I'd have to go back and look and see, how many freshmen led the NCAA in scoring in, when they were 18 or 19 years old. But just that player, I think, is really exciting too. I think he has, a potential to be a 70 to kind of 90-point player as well. So I'd throw Wittenbach in the mix, but he's kind of third on the list right now for me.
I love Wittenbach. I love his game. I love what he watch. When you watch him, you play his game. You love what he's doing in the NCAA. I kept him at third on when I was listening to prospects because I'd like to see it a little bit again. Like you saw Zane Parekh dominate the OHL for a couple of seasons. You saw Matt Gridin go into a couple of different leagues and be one of the best players in that league for a couple of seasons. You've seen Wittenbach do it once, and that's no slight against him. That just means you need to see a little bit more from him. And if he could do it somewhere close again, then he's going to be right up there with those other two as well for me. But that's such a talent. Like, he reminds me a lot of like a Paul Correa type of player. Where just he's everywhere. He's buzzing around. He can score points. I'm definitely not sleeping on Whitten Bach, and I hope nobody else is sleeping on that kid because he is good. Get yourself some Quinnipiac college hockey in your next year because it's going to be a must-see, some must-see hockey. Much like Gridin, he started out slower with the point-wise. This next guy struggled to find some points. He finally got a point on Sunday against the Utah Mammoth, his first NHL assist. Suniev has gotten a lot of love from Flame fans, and I like it. I like it a lot because this is another guy the Flames traded, used a draft pick from a trade to acquire. This is another guy that the Flames targeted. This is a guy they brought out of college. He did a lot of work with Suniev with his skating, and you can see the difference between last year's game and this year's game when you watch him skate around and play at that puck. And he's been really good as of late for the Wranglers as well. Where are you at with Suniev? And I know it's a smaller sample size at the NHL level, but where are we at with this guy? Because 36 seems to have come a long way in just a short time.
Yeah, he's just another player who just looks like he's getting better and better as each game goes on. And last night he picked up his first point. He made an incredible pass to Braden Pahal, who ripped a one-timer home. And Suniev in Seattle, he hit a post on the power play against Utah. He hit the post, so he's coming close to scoring his first NHL goal. And the thing I like about him is that I see a lot of dynamic elements to his game, just the way he skates, the way he shoots the puck, the way he passes the puck. It all looks very dynamic to me. It doesn't look like kind of like your average NHL player. It almost looks like there's like another level to his skill compared to others. And it'll all just come down to consistency and can he put it together on a night in, night out basis. And the more games and opportunity he gets and the more ice time he gets, I think the closer he'll get to becoming that player. So yeah, to me, he looks like he can be an NHL player. I don't watch him and think to myself like, he might be an AHLer. Like I was kind of thinking that with William Stromgren earlier this year when he got called up. I was like, he kind of looks like an AHL player. Even there are times when Rory Kerins where I was like, he's not really able to keep up and don't know if he's a full-time NHL guy. But when I watch Suniev, it's the opposite. I'm like, this guy has what it takes to be an NHL player. And like I said, it's just going to be kind of up to him and up to the Flames to give him the opportunity to show that he can be that everyday player. But heading into next year, like I see him maybe starting with the Wranglers because just there's such a logjam of forwards. But with a Blake Coleman trade and potentially a Ryan Strome trade, and there might be a Morgan Frost deal if they can't come to an agreement, there's going to be spots open in the forward group. And I think kind of like Gridin, I bet you right around the second half of the year, closer to the trade deadline, he'll become an everyday NHLer. So yeah, I've been super impressed with what I've seen from him so far.
We've talked in a few episodes about looking in the rearview mirror, how certain players have to watch out for someone coming. This is the guy coming for me. What we've seen this year, the progression we've seen in the pace of play, his boots, and his hockey IQ has seemed to take another step forward. What we're seeing here is a player who's taken a lot of information in over the last year and has started to put it to his benefit. And this is a guy coming like a freight train in some rearview mirrors of guys like a Sharon Govich or a Connor Zary or those type of guys that he might take their job sooner than they think. This is a guy who I think can be a middle six scoring threat for a National Hockey League team. And I like it. I like watching those kind of players who can come in here and take a job and provide themselves a role and take advantage of that opportunity. Like that play he made to Pahal, it seems so simple, but it was such a smart play. Leave it on a tee for the defenseman and let's get that puck on net. It's just a simple play. Things that we didn't see him doing last year or doing earlier in the season with the Wranglers, just simplifying his game. So if I am a guy like Connor Zary or I am a Sharon Govich, I'm making sure that I have a good offseason and I'm ready for next season because there's a freight train in my rearview mirror and it's wearing the number 36 because he's coming on quick. And you like what you've seen in the small sample size in the National Hockey League this year. The Flames target college free agents more frequently, it feels like, as of recently, and they targeted another guy this year, a hometown guy who's played in a few games now for the Flames. Tyson Gross got a lot of commentary about being a Calgary kid and how he was so good in college and winning awards in college. And he comes to Calgary in that first game, I'm going to be honest, that first game was really, really rough, but he got very limited minutes. But since then, he seemed to have found a couple of things to be counted on in a lineup. He's found himself a nice role on that fourth line, and he's been able to assert himself in the face-off dot, which we all know coaches love. What have you made of Gross in his short stint with the Flames here? And is there something there longer term past the season, Robert? Because college free agents don't have the best track record.
No, and we covered that a couple episodes ago. And over the last 15 years, the best college free agent the Flames have signed is Garnet Hathaway. So, these are definitely lottery tickets, and expectations aren't that high for these guys. But similar to the Parekh conversation in terms of just like how they've continued to get better in the progression. I mean, watching Tyson Gross at game 1 compared to games 3, 4, and 5. Night and day difference for this guy. Like I think he's getting used to the speed. I think he's making quicker plays. He's making quicker reads. Like you said, he's been good in the faceoff circle, 53.5%. For a guy that young and that inexperienced going up against NHL guys, that's incredibly impressive. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's a future for him in the NHL. I don't think the ceiling's that high. Like I think he probably maxes out, like maxing out to his most potential, probably as like a third line center. I think realistically he's probably more of a fourth line center, and maybe a guy that can turn into, I was going to say Derek Ryan, but even that feels like it's a bit of a reach. Maybe like a Matt Stajan at the end of his career, when he'd put up anywhere between 12 to 20 points and play on the penalty kill and win draws and that kind of stuff. That's kind of the NHL ceiling I see for Gross. But once again, if he can be a long-term Wrangler and play 4 or 5 years down there and be a really good player, and then get called up every now and then for the Flames if there's injuries, that's totally fine by me. And if he can become a full-time NHLer, then that's fantastic, and that's just a great piece of scouting by the Flames. So I think he's gotten way better. And in Colorado, him scoring his first NHL goal was awesome. It would have been so cool if that second goal counted. I know it worked out well in terms of Team Tank, but at the same time, that would have been a pretty awesome moment. But yeah, I've liked his game so far. What about you?
I've liked it better as of late, and I think what you're seeing is him getting better with each game, and that's a positive sign. I think this guy could be, if he's willing to accept the fourth line center role, I think this guy is an upgrade on a guy like a Beecher or a Kirkland. I think he has the potential to be a better version of those players, a guy who can come in here, be a fourth line faceoff specialist, a guy that maybe you can start killing some penalties with that faceoff. You win a faceoff on the penalty kill, it obviously makes that job a little bit easier doing that. So this is a guy, if he can carve out that type of a role and take on that type of role, and he's willing to do that type of work, I think he's got a nice future in the National Hockey League, playing where he hopefully for the Flames, playing where he may play. And if he's a 13th forward or a tweener type of guy, I still think that's a success based off what the Flames thought of this guy, based off what the Flames history with U.S. college free agents are, and all of those factors in there. So I quite liked him against Utah, to be honest. I really thought he played a pretty good game, and he was one of the better guys against Seattle as well on Saturday, winning some faceoffs and being really good in the faceoff dot. So those kind of things, those tangibles are things that coaches like. So if you can find yourself a role and do those kind of things, then I think he has himself a future in the National Hockey League, albeit at a fourth line role. But that's okay. You need those kind of players as well. And he's cheap as chips at the moment for the Flames as well.
Yeah, so, and I think you like the size. I think you like the speed. Like you said, his work in the faceoff circle. He won a defensive award in the NCAA this season in his conference. So there's a lot to like when it comes to this player. And like you said, with everything that he brings to the table, it's exactly what a coach like Ryan Huska wants to see from a player like that. So I could see there being some NHL potential there. There's a lot of forwards in this Flames prospect pool, but luckily for him, he's a center, and there's not a ton coming up right now. So maybe if they trade Ryan Strome next year, around the deadline, maybe Tyson Gross, he gets a look as the third line center for the rest of the year or something like that. So yeah, there's going to be chances for him to become a player for sure.
If you ask me right now, would you rather bring back John Beecher for one more year or give that opportunity to Gross? I think it's pretty easy to say you give that opportunity to Gross, right?
Beecher, of course, right?
Right. Yeah. Treliving is no longer with the Flames, Robert.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I'm joking. Gross 10 times out of 10. I'm not a Beecher.
It's always gross, right? And it'll be cheaper than whatever you can sign Beecher for as well, right? Not that the Flames need the salary cap savings, but every penny does help. There's one name omitted from this list of young, youthful players that we're talking about that we haven't seen. And yes, he had injuries in the American Hockey League. And yes, Pat Steinberg on the Fan 960 has been saying he's going to be called up. There's 2 games left and still no Rory Kerins. What do we make of this situation? Is Rory Kerins an NHLer? Do we need to see more from Rory Kerins? Where do you lie on the Rory Kerins conversation? Because it's one online that if you read other people's tweets and messages and posts, Flame fans wanted to see Kerins a long time ago. I know the injury was there as well, but no Rory Kerins. But why?
Yeah, where is he? Why haven't they called him up yet? Like this is getting a little silly. You know, if there's one player on the Wranglers who deserves to get some games here, it's absolutely him. But the way I'm viewing the situation, and once again, this is no inside info or anything like that. It's just it feels like Ryan Huska hates this player, and I think it's really as simple as that. I mean, when you think of Kerins, he's a smaller guy. He's not the best defensively. He's not going to win like a ton of puck battles. He's not very fast. And I think those are all qualities that Ryan Huska likes to have in his bottom 6 forwards, and particularly his 4th line forwards. But the thing that Kerins does really well is that he's almost kind of like a Brustevich in the way that he sees the game, his hockey IQ, his vision, his playmaking. Like he knows where to be on the ice, especially in the offensive zone. And I just have this feeling that Huska doesn't like having that type of player in the bottom 6 of his lineup. If that type of player is going to succeed in Calgary, I feel like they need to be in the top 6. And as the roster is currently constructed, there's really no space in the top 6 for a guy like him, even though you could make it for the last couple games a year because these games are useless. But I think it's really as simple as Huska does not like this player. I don't think Huska sees him as an NHL player. And I almost view it as kind of a similar situation to Matthew Phillips and Daryl Sutter. You know, people are just clamoring to have this player come up in there. They want to see him just because you want to make sure that if he's not an NHL player, you found it out in Calgary and you didn't find it out somewhere else where he actually can be an NHL player. And yeah, I think the comparison between him and Phillips is an interesting one because they basically played right around the same amount of games. I think Kerins at 7 games and Phillips played 4 or 5 for the Flames. And yeah, Daryl Sutter hated Matthew Phillips because of how small he was. I think Ryan Huska does not like the way Rory Kerins plays the game, and I really think it's as simple as that. And if Rory's ever going to have an NHL career, I think he has to do it somewhere else. And, you know, if you're the Flames, you'd love to keep him in the AHL. He's a really good AHL player. He's clearly the Wranglers' best player, but at the same time, I think it might be a good thing to do for the person to see if he can go be an NHL player somewhere else. That's kind of how I'm seeing it right now.
I'm glad you went there because that's exactly how I see it. Rory Kerins to me is the same situation as Matthew Phillips. You don't know if he's an NHLer, but you sure as heck want to find out. Now, I'm not sold as Kerins as a full-time NHLer, much like I wasn't sold that Matthew Phillips was a full-time NHLer. But even me, a guy who's not sure they're an NHL player, you still want to put them in the lineup. You still want to see. You drafted them. You spent time developing them. You spent time giving them opportunities in the American Hockey League. What is 2 games at the end of a useless season going to do for you other than tell you something about this guy? Either he shows up and he works and he shows that he has the skills to hang at the National Hockey League level or deserve another look at the National Hockey League level, or he fails and he's just not a fit for what you're trying to do. Either way, it's a win-win. You win because either he becomes an NHLer and he can join your lineup and he helps you further your goal of trying to make this a younger, more competitive hockey club, or you fail and he moves on and you have another kid take that spot in the American Hockey League that you could try with him. So there's nothing to lose here for the Calgary Flames, only things to gain. So whether a coach likes a player or not, I hate that. I hate that kind of stuff. It should be, can this guy play or not? Not, do I like him or not? And that's where I think the Flames have failed a little bit here. And If they believe Kerins isn't a National Hockey League player, fine. Then why haven't you called somebody else up either? Like, let's use the last call up to your advantage. You're in a lost season. You're in a season you're trying to find time for the kids to play. Why not use that last recall on someone then, whether it be Strome, whether it be somebody else you're thinking of in the lineup, whether it be another defenseman, someone else. If you're not going to use it on Kerins, use it on somebody else. But at the end of the day, you got to see what Kerins is, and I think the Flames are failing at that. That's the one negative I think that the Flames are failing at when it comes to the end of the season here.
Yeah, I agree. There's really no reason whatsoever for him not to get an opportunity here, and who knows, we might see him get called up tomorrow morning on Tuesday before the game against Colorado. That might happen. I feel like he's got to be like guaranteed to at least play against LA. At the same time, it's just like, what can you really gather from one game? But yeah, like I'm looking at the lineup right now. You don't need Blake Coleman to play these next couple games. I know you want to get him to 20, but he really doesn't need to play. Yegor Sharangovich absolutely does not need to play. I'm so done with this guy.
He's been so much better, player. Robert. He has such a better the media.
I'm gonna jump off my balcony here, John. You got to stop Sharangovich. Even like Adam Klapka does not need to play for the rest of the season. Strome, Victor Olofsson, Johnny Beecher, Martin Pospisil. These types of guys do not need to play between now and the end of the season. Get Rory Kerins in there, make a spot for him, and play him on the power play, and put him in the top 9 and give him some offensive guys to play with. Like, give this guy a real chance. They have not given him a real chance yet. You know, he had the 4 points in 4 games there last season, which was great, but then they sent him right back down after that, which made absolutely no sense. So yeah, just give this guy a chance and just see if he can be an NHL player. And you know, I'm with you. Like, I'm not totally convinced that he's an NHL guy, but let's find out. You know, the only way to do that is to play him. So give the guy some games here and let's see what the heck this guy can do. Like, you know, he ripped it up in his call-up last year. He ripped it up in the preseason this year. Give the guy a chance. Like, come on. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, what are they fearing for? They're going to lose a game? Like, honestly, what's the fear? That he's not going to have a good shift?
It's encouraged they lose games right now. Like, come on.
Yeah, you can't tell me that Gross and Weeb have come up here and have been perfect. Can't tell me that Bruz and Parekh have been flawless. You can't tell me that Gridin and Suniev have been flawless in their call-ups. Some have been better than others, but you don't know unless you try, and that's one of the most frustrating things when it comes to a player like Rory Kerins is try something. So play him against, maybe not play, if you don't want to play against the Avalanche because what the Avalanche are, who cares? Play him anyways, because the Avalanche have nothing to play for. They're President's Trophy winners already. You have nothing to play for. So this guy goes up and he gets walked by Nathan McKinnon on a shift. Who cares? Who cares? Oh, hold on. Robert's sending me messages mid-show here. Let's finish up this conversation, this episode, Robert, with a talk about the offseason, because it's I think important for a lot of these players we talked about this in this episode who have played this season, and even some veterans like maybe a Connor Zary or Sharangovich, whoever it might be. It's imperative that some of these guys have a really good summer and a really good offseason. It's a very important offseason. Who tops your list, though, Robert, of who needs to have the biggest offseason and come to camp ready to go with the feet hitting the ground running here?
Yeah, like I think there's a few really good options here. Like we'll just go back and forth. Like I'll start with Morgan Frost. I think it's critical for him to go into the offseason, train his ass off, come into training camp maybe a little bit faster, come in the best shape of his life, like we all love hearing from these guys. But do those things, get a little bit stronger, get a little bit faster, because next season, you know, he's a pending UFA, and he's going to have the best opportunity of his entire career to either become a full-time second-line center in the NHL, and he's got the biggest chance here to you know, have the biggest payday of his career as well. So the opportunity is there from the Flames. Like he's going to get power play one time all season. He's probably going to play with Matt Gridin, their best offensive player, probably all season. Maybe even like a Matt Coronato's on that line. And, you know, from an offensive perspective, he actually might be their number one center next year. So he's going to get an insane opportunity here. And I just think it's so important for him to come in and have a big year. We all know how talented he is. We talk about it all the time. But, you know, he's at 21 goals, 21 assists this year. I think this guy can get into the 50, 55 point range if he really wants to. Like, I think he's talented enough. The opportunity is going to be there. And then, it's just going to be up to him to take it. So, and the one part of his game that I do think needs a little bit of work is his skating and just like overall strength. And if he can do those couple things and then have a big year in the faceoff circle and put up 50 to 55 points, I think the Flames would look to probably re-sign him to a 4 or 5 year deal, or he becomes a big time trade chip for this team. And maybe you can get back a second round pick for him, or even more potentially. Who knows? So I think it's just a massive, massive offseason for Morgan Frost.
Yeah, I like that one. I like that one a lot. I agree with a lot of that there. I like Morgan, and I want to see him succeed as well. The Morgan Frost we saw the last month needs to show up all year next year.
That's a good point. He does come across as like a really good guy, and it seems like
really
his teammates love him. And you're right. And the other thing to consider too with him is that I still think Cole Reshny is probably 3 or 4 years away from being a true impact maker at the NHL level. And, Theo Stocksilius is probably 4 or 5 years away. And, those types of guys, Tyson Gross, I don't think is ever going to get into the top 9. So there's a chance for him not only next season, but for a few years beyond that to be kind of the go-to guy for this team, which is a little crazy to say, but it's there for him. And he's just got to take it.
He's going to take it. My first guy on my list is very similar to that. This is Pooper get off the pot time, I think, for number 47. I think the injuries last season can no longer be an excuse. I don't think that his spot in the lineup can be an excuse. Connor Zary needs to have a good offseason, and he needs to come into camp ready to show and take a job from Ryan Huska and tell Ryan Huska, no, I'm not a fourth line left winger. I'm not a second line right winger. This is my role. This is what I want to be. This is who I am. He's in the first of a 3-year contract, so he has some time and some runway, sure, when it comes to contract-wise, but 25 points in 73 games is not good enough for Connor Zary. He's got to find himself a spot in this lineup to be a difference maker, and the opportunities are there. We talked just now about a few wingers, about Suniev coming in the rearview mirror. He's got to show that he's willing to take that next step and be the Connor Zary that was projected a couple seasons ago when he came into this league and started tearing up on the wing of Nazem Kadri. That Connor Zary needs to show back up and be more consistent here, because the opportunity is there for him to be a top 6 winger if he can provide the offense that we've seen at times, if he can provide the bite in the lineup we've seen at times. And I know you'll mention it if you ever talk about Connor Zary, he needs to work on his boots, get those skates going, get that speed going a little bit more, find ways to play quicker. And if he can do that, I think this guy can have a long-term future in Calgary as a go-to guy for the Flames. And I want to see it because I'm a big fan of this guy. I've watched him since he was like 14 years old and his way through the Western Hockey League. This guy has what it takes to be a pro if he can get over whatever is blocking him mentally and get back to playing his game. So for me, Connor Zary, have a monster offseason and just come back ready to take it all on.
He's running out of runway.
He is.
He is definitely running out of runway with this team right now. And yeah, I completely agree. Out of all the guys, like if we're to rank in terms of like who needs to have the best or biggest offseason, Zary is probably at the very top of that list for all the reasons you just said. And we talked about him a lot this year, but just the potential's there for him to be a pretty good NHL player. Like I don't think he's ever going to be, a 60-point guy or anything like that, but he can push 40 to 50 a year if he kind of realizes his potential. I don't think that's out of the questions, but
20 goals shouldn't be out of the question for this guy at all.
Yeah, I don't think so either. So yeah, that one's going to be really interesting to see. My next guy is still up front. I'm really curious to see what Martin Pospisil looks like next year, because this year has just been a complete write-off for him. He starts the season with the concussion. He's out for months. He doesn't come back until January, and then he goes to the Olympics and he comes back and he's been in and out of the lineup. And when he is in the lineup, he does not look like the same player he did in his first 2 years in the NHL. He doesn't even look close to being the same type of player. He's not as aggressive. He's not as fast. He doesn't make an impact out there. And the way Pospisil makes an impact is he's physical. He's a great forechecker. He pisses you off. And I think he's a really good puck carrier. Like he's great for zone entries. He's great at taking the puck to the net and creating havoc around the opposing goaltender. Those are the types of things that you want to see from Pospisil, and we haven't seen that at all this season. So, and he's going to be starting the first year of a 3-year contract next year. You know, the Flames are committed to this guy. I mean, I'm sure there might be a team out there that might be willing to take him on and take a chance on him, but after the season he's had, like, I got to think his trade value is quite literally at an all-time low right now. Over the last 3 years. So I'm really curious to see what he's going to look like heading into training camp next year. I know he has a reputation for working his bag off in the summer, and so I'm not worried about like him coming to camp in shape or not, or getting stronger. It's just more, you know, can he bring that physicality back? Can he get over, you know, all the injuries that he's had? Can he get back to being that effective player? And, you know, I think having a big offseason this year is going to be the starting point for that.
Yeah, you gotta wonder what he is at this point of his career, right? With all of those injuries and the setbacks and all that kind of stuff. Like, this is a player similar to Zari. Like, a couple years ago, he came into the league on the wing of Nazem Kadri, and he tore through this league over that season. He was an absolute force. And what is he at this point of his career? I just don't know. So I think I like that call by you, Rob. That's good. I wasn't even thinking of him on my list, to be honest.
I just wonder if we're going to be running into a Michael Ferland situation, and you know, similar situation in the sense that these guys both are dealing with injuries and they're very physical players, and the only ways for them to truly be effective was when they're on their game and hitting and fighting and all that kind of stuff. Ferland was a better offensive player than Pospisil is, but kind of a similar situation. And Ferland, you know, after getting traded to Carolina, he flamed out pretty quickly because of all the concussions that he had. And I worry that Pospisil is kind of going down the same road as Ferland, and I don't know if he's going to be in for a long-term career just because of the way he plays. And, you know, like, would you agree? Like, when he's not physical, he's not all that effective. Like, is that fair to say?
Yeah, he's got to be in the thick of it to be an effective hockey player. And when you're in the thick of it, you're in the boards, you're mucking up with guys, you're hitting guys, you're in the slot, pushing people around. And if you're not engaged that way, then what are you if you're Martin Pospisil?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking. So yeah, and you know, we've mentioned it a few times here. The forward group is getting very crowded very quickly. So he's got to somehow separate himself from others. And you know, has Adam Klapka taken over his role in the team? Like, you know, those are the types of questions I'm thinking about. Can Brennan Othman come in next year and surpass Pospisil? Like, these are legit questions for this guy.
You talk about a crowded forward group, and this is where I'm going to go with my next guy, because he's kind of forgotten about because he got injured so early in the season. Only 18 games played for Sam Honzek. He had 4 points in those 18 games, and he started to find himself a role here. So this might be an interesting one for some people. Why are you picking the injured guy, John? Well, he needs to have a monster offseason, put himself back in the radar of the Flames when it comes to camp. I'm sure they're going to give him every opportunity to take back his spot in this roster, but he's got to kind of earn it again for the coaching staff, for the fans. Can you duplicate those 18 games again? Because he really started to turn the corner early in the season, playing alongside Backlund and Coleman, and find himself a nice spot on that wing with those two players. So I think this is an important offseason for Honzek to make sure he's fully healthy, and he's kind of getting the hurt bag rap to him with missing a lot of time with these injuries here. So for me, this offseason is kind of twofold for him. Be 100% healthy. Make sure your body's ready to go for training camp. And when it hits to be training camp, hit the ground running. Because for Sam Honzek, this could be a guy, because of injuries, he could get passed over in a hurry. We talked about Suniev. We talked about what is Martin Pospisil and Othman, and you got all these kids coming. What's the next group of drafted wingers coming in? You got 15 forwards right now with the Flames, and that's without Sam Honzek and without Jonathan Huberdeau being accounted for. So what are you for the Flames? So for me, Sam Honzek got to have a clear, good cut summer here. Recovery is very important for him, and take care of that body, because I'd love to see Sam Honzek kind of prove a lot of us wrong about our draft. When he was drafted, our little draft conversation we had when he was drafted, you know, a lot of people are down on the pick. What is he? What can he beat the NHL level? Because the time's now for him, because he might get passed over in a hurry here. So Sam Honzek, cheering for you, man, but you need a good summer.
And the more I'm thinking about it, and just like, you know, listening to our conversation here, the more I think the Flames, they got to make a couple trades this summer.
So many wingers.
There's too many. Like, I'm looking at Blake Coleman. And trading Blake Coleman this summer, I think, would be a really good thing for him and his family. I mean, they got 4 young kids, and for them to be kind of up in the air about where they're going to be all year, I think might be a little unfair. And I know the guy's making $5 million a year, and cry me a river kind of thing, but might be a nice thing for the Flames to do for him. And Pospisil, he could definitely be on the block here. I don't know what the future of Klapka is, but is there like a way to get rid of Sharon Govich? I don't know if that's humanly possible, but like those are the types of things that Craig Conroy is going to have to consider this offseason, because there's just too many guys, and you have to have Honzig in the lineup last year. Do you think he comes in to next season with an NHL spot basically in pen, or do you think he still has to earn it?
I think it's in pencil, but I think it's in pencil in that spot he was in, because you look at that trio and how well they played for that stretch right before he got injured there, and how much it was clicking. So I think he has his spot in pencil with a pen ready to go, because if he can come back and pick up where he left off, I think it's really easy to put that in pen in a set it and forget it type of line for the Flames if Coleman's still around as well. So I think he does have to earn it a little bit, just because it was only 18 games, right? And we've seen him injured more than we've seen him play. So gotta kind of get over the hurdle of always being hurt and always being, well, he's not reliable because he's never there.
Yeah, just such a freak show injury too. That it was really too bad that he got hurt at the time he did. And yeah, like you never see that stuff happen. Like I don't even know if we've seen that of 2 Flames run into each other since that injury happened. Like, yeah, it was such a freak injury. But I was not confident in him as a prospect, dating back as early as the beginning of this season, but he definitely proved me wrong for sure. Like I do think there's a bright future for him as a kind of a, let's call it middle 6 defensive shutdown forward that can put up, 12 to 18 goals kind of thing, like a slightly less offensive Blake Coleman. I could see him becoming that type of player.
Yeah, and I take it, right? I'm happy to be wrong about a guy like Honzig if he can come in there and show you that you're wrong. Anyone else strike you, Robert, that needs to have a big summer?
Yeah, I mean, the obvious ones remaining are just Parekh and Brustevich. For obvious reasons. I think both need to get better when it comes to their breakaway speed, their north-south skating. I think both need to improve. They both need to get stronger, in terms of when it comes to winning puck battles and things like that. So I think those 2 guys are obvious too. And even, we're talking about Honzig, like, is his position in pen. Are we saying the same thing about Yan Kuznetsov? Because I think I am. I think coming into training camp next year, he's in pen, like he's on the left side of that defense. But even he needs to come back and show that he can do it again, because it's great to do it in a lost season when games don't really mean all that much and all that kind of stuff. But let's see if he can do it again. That's kind of another guy I have my eye on.
I agree with that one too. I like Yan Kuznetsov, what he's brought to the lineup, and I'd love to see him stick. I think he's got a job. Where in that lineup though? Can he take the next step? Can he force his way into that top 4? I think would be where Yan Kuznetsov head should be at here next. Like, can he push Mata or Ball for some minutes here and help out the Flames that way as well? Like, I don't think that's out of the question for Calgary. The last one I have here on my list, and it's going to seem kind of silly to some people, but Dustin Wolf. I think Dustin
I was thinking the same thing.
I think Dustin Wolf, and it's not that he was bad this year. It was, and not that it was like all that much of a down season. I think he's been a lot better a lot later, but I think he needs to see the approach that Devin Cooley brought to the lineup every single night and say, okay, I've come good. I've been fine, but I need to take another step. I need to make it so there's not a conversation on social media about who should be the number 1. There's not a doubt in the coach's mind that I'm the first goaltender over the boards. I think this is a very pivotal offseason for him, as well as the league started figuring him out a little bit more, that he needs to find a way to excel a little bit more on what he does really, really well. And so for me, Dustin Wolf is a good offseason because there's still an opportunity for him to take more games from Devin Cooley, to be more reliable for the Calgary Flames. And he's still a fairly young player as well. So there's still time to learn and to grow and to get better. And I think this offseason for him is a big key in helping him do that, exactly that. Yeah,
I mean, this year he was an average NHL goalie. Yep. I think is kind of the best way to put it. Like, I don't think he was below average, but I think he was kind of in that, anywhere from the 28th to 34th best goalie in the league this year kind of thing. And, because of the contract he signed and just because of his pedigree and all that kind of stuff, I think the expectation is that Wolf is a top 15 goalie in the NHL, basically year in, year out for the rest of his contract here. And yeah, he wasn't there this year, but there are growing pains. It's the hardest league in the world to play in for a reason. And shooters might have started to figure him out a little bit. Who knows if that's the case or not, but we'll find out next year. But yeah, he's a critical member of this team. And I do think if you're a Flames fan, I know next year you want them to finish near the bottom of the standings again, but at the same time, you also don't want Dustin Wolf's confidence to get derailed and to have his career kind of, get out of control here. You want him to remain that kind of top 15 guy. And the other thing for Wolf to consider here is that, yes, I mean, he's signed the contract, so he's secure financially for the rest of his life, which is great and good on him. He's got Devin Cooley behind him. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to getting starts, Cooley's making a serious push to become a 1A, 1B tandem. Or if Cooley continues to play like this for the next 2 years, there will become a conversation of who do we want to go with long term? Like, who's our guy?
Yep.
And Wolf's got to be careful with that too. So yeah, I think you're right. I think this offseason is really important for Wolf as well.
Work on that glove hand, Dustin, please, for the love of all that is holy. Please work on that glove hand. Robert, anybody else we need to bring up on the podcast today, or any other topic that we've missed here that you'd like to bring up? If not, where can the folks find you and what's coming up on flamesnation.ca?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of having a big offseason, the other guy I kind of look at is Yegor Sharangovich. If you're the Flames, you want him to get back to being a 20 to 20, let's say 27 goal scorer, like a 22 to 25 goal scorer, somewhere in there. And the way he's going to have to do it is he's going to have to get stronger. He's going to have to win more puck battles. He's going to have to go to the net more. And he's got to regain his confidence and take way more shots. I mean, watching him this season has been tough. It really has. And, the same thing goes for last year too. These last 2 years has been really difficult to watch for me because it's just a guy who just does not look engaged, does not really look like he wants to be there. But I say all this, like he's been playing terrible the last 2 years, yet he's still in like that 15 to 17 goal range and having an awful year. Like that, if that's him having an awful year, what does a good year look like for this guy? And even this year, he could be pushing 20 goals. Like he's had a bunch of goals taken back through offsides and goalie interference. He could be pushing 20 goals, and I still think that he's nowhere close to living up to his potential. So if he has a good year, like I do see him being a 25 goal guy. And, maybe that starts with him getting a little bit stronger and having a little bit more of an intense off season and then coming into camp and getting ready to go. But like the skill is there and like the shot is definitely there. It's just the guy, I think he needs to up his confidence. He needs to up his physicality. He needs to up his give a shit meter. And if he does that, I do think that the Flames will be able to get off that contract, or he could become a half decent player for this team. That's one of those two outcomes are possible. So, yeah, Yegor's another guy I kind of look at.
Yeah, I like that. He for me, he just I kind of skip over him when I look at the Flames roster now because it's just like, okay, they're Sharangovich, right? It's an untradeable contract, really. It's a guy who's gonna skate around and maybe he'll get a goal tonight type of player. So I think I like what you put there, Robert. I like how you put that there. That's Robert Munich. He's at Ring of Fire, a CGY across social media. Look for him and his content on flamesnation.ca. I am Vintage Johnny 84 across social media, and of course the show. Red Mile Rundown, wherever you get your social media done. Go look us up. We are on there. And thank you so much for making us a part of your podcast rotations. Just 2 games left, Robert, this week for the Flames to take on the Avalanche Tuesday. And it is the LA Kings on Thursday. Enjoy them because we're all going to miss Flames hockey when it's gone, even if it is a down season. Lots to talk about still this year, though, as well for the Flames. Enjoy the hockey. We'll be back next week with some more here at the Red Mile Rundown.